Hello Burleson students, I'm so happy I have the chance to remotely provide some general instructions for my students. I know these are stressful weeks for all of us, but I'm hoping you are staying safe, and also I'm hoping that you're practicing your instrument every single day. This is the first video in a series that I'll be recording, and I'm making them available online for everybody. These videos are not constant instructions, so I will be playing and I'm going to ask you to play along. So you are going to need your instrument. And if you have any questions about the material that I'm playing from, the book, or even the exercises, make sure that you're emailing me or your band director directly so I can send you the files. My email for Burleson IST is mehdad@bistmail.net. Okay, today's masterclass is going to be about how to practice scales. What do we need, how are we going to do it, and what challenges each scale is going to bring onto us. Okay, so for today's masterclass, the material that you need is going to be, first of all, your instrument, and also I'm going to ask you to have your metronome handy. I'm going to be using my phone because I connected my phone to this Bluetooth speaker that I have, so you all can hear it. And okay, it's working now. And you are also going to need your scale masters. Either if you're playing the 1 octaves or 2 octaves, you need to have all the scales. If you don't have the scales at home, or if by any chance you forgot them at school before we all were locked out, make sure that you're emailing either me or your band director so you get a PDF and you can practice it either from your phone or you can print it for you. Okay, so what kind of scales do we have? If you are around 6th or 7th grade, chances are that you might be still practicing 1 octave scales. And if you are around 7th or 8th grade, or even if you are in high school and watching this, you will be playing full range scales. And here's the order for the scales that I want you to learn right at the beginning. If you're looking at the 1 octave scales, I want you to be starting with Bflat Major, concert Bflat Major. The next scale that you can learn is concert F or F Major, and you can keep going with C Major, A Flat Major, and so on. And if you are working on full range scales, I would like you to be practicing F Major and E Flat Major, and once you have those 2 scales down, you can go ahead and practice the other scales. Alright. Now, I'm going to start with 1 octave scales today and ask you to play along with me. And I'm going to go through every single scale, playing them for you and asking you to repeat them for me, and also talk about what kind of different challenges we should be paying attention to with each scale. The first scale that I want you to be playing with me is B-flat major on the 1 octave scale sheet. If you are practicing B-flat major full range, it's okay. You can just play along 2 octave scales for me, but I'm trying to include everybody's scales in this video so everybody can use this video as a guide. Okay, this is how B-flat major is going to sound. I'm going to set my metronome to 70. Okay, hopefully this is not too loud. With B-flat major, most of you know that B-flat major has 2 flats, B-flat and E-flat, all right? And one thing that I want everybody to do with B-flat major is to remember to use your B-flat thumb, all right? If you use this thumb, which some of you might call it double thumb, if you use that finger, you're not going to need to put down 1 and 1 finger or use this slide. So you won't need to use any of these fingers. All right, so I'm going to turn on the metronome one more time, and then I want you to have your B-flat major in front of you and play along with me. This is 65. 1, 2, ready, go. Very well. You're welcome to pause the video here and practice it a few times if you are still having problems playing through B-flat major. Okay, the next scale that we are playing from 1 octave is going to be F major. All right, just a few reminders. F major also has B flat, so we are going to use our B flat thumb. But the difference is that F major is not going to have E flat, so you are going to use E natural with F major. So those are the two things that most of the time go wrong. All right, let's talk about practicing a scale. One tip that I can give you today is to how to start learning the scale. For example, if you haven't played F major, which chances are pretty low that you haven't practiced F major by this point, one thing that is the easiest way is to go measure by measure. All right, so for example, with F major, have your flutes out, and I'm going to play one measure, rest for another measure, and give you time to play the measure that I just did. So I'm going to play the first measure, you're going to play the first measure. I'm going to play the second measure, and you are immediately after me going to play the second measure. This is metronome 65. Wonderful. Okay, the next scale that I want you to be learning is A flat major. Just to review how many accidentals we have with this scale, A flat major has 4 flats. B flat, so we are going to use our B flat thumb. That's very important. Make sure that you don't forget that. A flat, which is just like a G, but we are adding our pinky. All right, and D flat, which is nothing but your pinky. Some of you might be using your right hand as well. All right, D flat is that, but with pinky. All right, and E flat, which we already reviewed in B flat major. Okay, this is A flat major. After I played, you're welcome to pause the video, turn on your metronome at home, and practice A flat major. Go ahead and pause the video and play this a few times. Okay, so the next scale is going to be a little bit different than the ones that we already played. This is the first scale that has a sharp. Just as a reminder, sharp brings the note half a step higher, and flats are bringing our notes half a step lower. All right, look at G major. You don't see any flats, but you see F sharp, right? F sharp is this one, just as a reminder. And we don't use our B flat thumb. Already you might have gotten used to using your B flat thumb, but we are just going to use the longer one, which we call it single thumb or B natural thumb. All right? And with G major, this is how it's going to sound. You can use the technique that I just taught you, which is going measure by measure and repeating each measure so you are feeling comfortable with that. personally like to turn my skills into games. For example, I tell myself if I can't play every measure 5 times in a row completely perfect, I'm not allowed to go to the next measure. That's one way to make sure that you know each measure perfectly before you're trying to play the whole scale. Alright, so the next scale that you can play is going to be C major. Okay, look at C major. Just look along the line and you notice that there are no accidentals. There is nothing, no flats, no sharps. Alright, so we are not going to be using our B flat thumb. We just use this single thumb, just like that. We are not touching that one. And C major goes pretty high in our 1 octave scales. It might be one of the highest ones, so you need a lot of air. As you go higher, you need to increase the air pressure and air speed, all right, and that leads you to having a smaller aperture. All right, so those two things happen, and you're increasing the air as you're going higher, so you can get the high C out. That was the high C. Okay, this is going to be C major, concert C major. Let's go ahead and practice this together. I'm going to play the first measure and you repeat the first measure once I've played it. Alright, so I play the first measure and in the space between me playing the second measure, you are going to repeat after me. Wonderful. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and make sure that you know every single note in every single measure. Alright, well, now we are getting closer to the scales that you might not have already practiced this past year. Especially if you are in 6th grade, the chances are you have not yet played B major or, for example, A major. Okay, now I'm going to go line by line and talk about every single scale that you can see on your 1 octave scale masters. All right, and with that, I will be talking about what the notes mean and a very easy way to make sure that you are not going to make mistakes by yourself. A lot of you guys are not having access, are not going to have access to your band director or even me to ask questions. So you need to make sure that you are accountable with yourself and you are just practicing very smartly these days. Okay, the first scale that you see on top of the page is A major. Let's look at it. Okay, so A major is one of the scales that has sharps. 3 sharps to be accurate and exact. The first sharp in the order of sharps is F sharp, and then C sharp, and then it's going to have G sharp. So those are the notes that you are going to need how to play to be able to play A major. Okay, some of you might be confused about what is C sharp or what was G sharp or what was F sharp. All right, everybody should have access to your book, and at the end of the book, all of you have seen your fingering charts. All right, make sure that you are not sitting there just confused about what's the meaning of these notes. This is a very easy way to go ahead and check and make sure that you know the fingering. All right, that way it's going to go much faster. So make sure that you have your fingering chart handy. Okay, so with A major, I'm going to go measure by measure and ask you to repeat after me. First measure is A, B, and C sharp. C sharp is just the pinky. Alright, go ahead and pause the video and make sure that you know the notes in A major. Alright, well, we already went through B flat major. The next scale is going to be B major. Alright, concert B major is the third line on the first page of your Scale Masters 1 octave packet that you've received. And if you are not looking at the scales that I have, it's fine. If you have any sort of scale sheet, it's going to work. If you have the 1 octave scale sheet, this is B major, concert B major. Wonderful. Okay, now I think it's a good time to talk about another way that you can practice scales. All right, imagine you have a ladder, and every note in a scale is one of the steps on a ladder. All right. And each step is kind of scary and you don't want to try to go up immediately, okay? You are going to add one step at a time, right? Okay, and we are going to try it with B major. So you have your flutes handy, okay? And if you have questions, have your fingering chart next to you so you can look at it and copy the fingerings. I'll try to be clear about it. Okay, the first note in a concert B major is going to be B natural. So first thing, you're not going to use your B flat thumb. You're going to put your thumb here. All right, go ahead and play a beautiful B for me. Those of you who you can do vibrato, make sure you're doing vibrato. All right, once you played your B, the next note, if you look at it, is going to be C sharp. All right, so we just want to make sure that in that ladder we are really good at hopping on the first step, right? B to C sharp. C sharp is going to be nothing but the pinky. Once you are sure that you can do B to C sharp, we are going to add another note, right? And the next note is going to be D sharp. Okay, look at your fingering chart, figure out what is D sharp, and then we are going to move on to be playing B, C sharp, and D sharp. Great. Now, I'm going to be playing B natural, C sharp, and D sharp. I just make sure that I'm super comfortable with all of those fingerings. Okay, the next note is going to be E natural. Remember, we talked about E flat and E natural. E natural was like an F, but we add our second finger. All right, so far in B major, we have B, C sharp, D sharp, and E natural. Okay, this way, as you can imagine, it's so much easier. Okay, and if you're playing the full range of scales along with this video, you can do the exact same thing. Never overwhelm yourself with too many notes at once. If you can't play, there is a point that you need to stop and make sure that you can play 2 notes at a time, and then from there you can expand and go ahead and play the whole scale. Okay, go ahead and pause the video, and after you've paused it, add 1 note at a time, and then I'm going to play B major for you. Wonderful. Now, this is metronome 65, but if you are having problems, you can go even lower. Let's put the metronome on 50. So that's pretty slow, right? We already have done the next scale, which is C major. For the next scale, which is D flat major, let's review the notes. The first note is going to be D flat. So far we have played a lot of C sharps. D flat and C sharp are called enharmonic notes, meaning that they have the same sound and same fingering, but depending on where they are coming in our music, we call them by different names. Okay, so in D flat major, the first note is D flat, and then we have an E flat, and then we move on to have an F. Okay, go ahead and practice this measure a few times, and then we are going to play it together. Okay, I put the metronome back to 65. Okay, so that's the first measure in D flat major. Then we have a note that we haven't had so far in this video, and that is second octave's G flat. Okay, so G flat fingering is exactly like F sharp's fingering. Okay, it would be good if you look at your fingering chart and see that those notes are introduced together with the same fingering, and this is the fingering for it. G plus your third finger on your right hand, and then after G flat we have A flat, then we have B flat, and make sure that you are using your B flat thumb, and then you go to a C with releasing your thumb. Okay, now let's go ahead and practice this measure together. Alright, very well. You can pause the video anytime that you want, so you can make sure that you're practicing it right. And by the time that we are done with this video, you might have practiced more than an hour, okay? And that's enough for the day that you're watching this video. Okay, concert D flat major, and the metronome is on 65 for quarter notes. Okay, wonderful. Very, very good. Now, before we introduce the next scale, which is going to be D major, I would like to talk about articulation or tonguing with our scales. All right. In Texas and most places around the United States, everybody knows that we always play the scales tonguing up and slurring down. For example, if we are playing the next one, which is D major, we go like this. So we are not tonguing the notes when we are coming out. We take a big, huge breath and connect everything coming down. But here's the very important thing that you need to remember. This doesn't apply to you when you're practicing a scale to learn that scale. Okay? When we are practicing something, we are going to be dealing with what is the fingering, what is the notes, how should I do it, and all the connections. So you make sure every time you're learning a scale, you play it all tongue across the scale, like tongue up and tongue down. Every note gets its own articulation. And once you can do the scale, for example, this fast, so you can connect it. Then you can start applying slurring down to the second half of the scale. All right? Because when we are tonguing something, all right, our brain is sending two pulses, one to our fingers and one with tonguing. So that way it is going to accelerate our learning, and also it's just easier. Okay, with D major, if you have a low D, go ahead and look at your fingering chart. Low D is just like middle D, but we are going to add our first finger, so it's sounding much lower. Or you can apply some vibrato. I'll be making another vibrato video later for you guys, but for now let's focus on scales. Okay, so D major, the next note is going to be E natural, and it's just like our second octave E natural. Then we go to F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. And you are welcome to pause the video again and practice that ladder exercise that we talked about earlier in this video. Okay, this is going to be D major in 65 quarter notes, and I'm going to play the whole scale. Wonderful. You can practice measure by measure. You can practice adding one note at a time so you complete the octave. All right, and you can combine those practices with measure and adding one note in a measure. Okay, one thing that we always do practicing anything that involves music, and this is something that I ask my students to constantly do in the practice room, is to point and name. What does that mean? That means, probably a lot of you already know, that means that when you're learning something, especially if we are in 6th or 7th grade and we don't have that much experience with sheet music, I want you to point at the notes and say their name out loud. For example, look at concert E flat major in the bottom of the page. I want you to point at the note and say the first note's name out loud. The chances of you making a mistake comes drastically lower, because you can catch yourself making a mistake much better if you're pointing at something and you're saying the name out loud. Okay, so I'm going to do this myself and you can copy me after you see that. So I'm going to be going measure by measure, and I go E flat, F, G. And if I don't know any of those fingerings, you know where to go. You go to your fingering charts, all right? And then, after you say the name of the notes a few times, you go ahead and play them. And then the next measure. A flat, B flat, C, D. And you don't have to sing them musically. You can just say A flat, B flat, C, D. And you look at them, and if you have a question regarding the fingering, you go to your fingering chart, you double check with that, and then you play it. And then you play it as many times as it takes, so you are feeling comfortable. And then the next measure is E flat, D, C. And then you play it a few times. You can go back and forth between tonguing and slurring. And the next measure, you can just play around with that measure. And then the last note is E flat, which is like second octave E flat, but we are adding our first finger. Wonderful. Okay, you're halfway through the one octave majors. Okay, E major. So far we have had 3 techniques on how to practice them. First one was practice measure by measure and repeat 5 times each measure until you can get it. The second one was the ladder one. We just play 1 note and then 2 notes until it's perfect, then 3 notes back and forth until it's perfect. Okay, so we can play the whole scale. All right, and then now I want you to go ahead and, if you can, add vibrato to the first note or the longer notes of each scale. Okay, for now you can just pulsate 8th notes vibrato, just like this. This is 65. You have learned already how to do triplet note vibrato, so it becomes, you can go a little bit slower, something like this. Wonderful. I'm just going to double check if I haven't forgotten anything. Okay. Yes. Okay. So this was E major. Go ahead and pause the video and go measure by measure so you are sure that you know every single note. All right. And make sure that you're pointing and saying the note names out loud. Wonderful. The next one is F major. We already have played this, but just as a reminder, listen to me and then repeat after me. The next scale is going to be F sharp major. Okay, make sure that you are double checking every single note with your fingering chart so you're not making a mistake. This is how F sharp major is going to sound. Some of you might have the question, what is E sharp? We might not see it in the fingering chart. E sharp is going to be just the same fingering as F. So here's the list that I'm going to tell you so you feel more comfortable about these confusing ones. E sharp is going to be like F. So write it down. Then sometimes we might see F flat. So F flat is going to be E natural. So E sharp, F natural, F flat, E natural. Write that down. You can write it on top of your scale sheet. Okay, so with F sharp major, when we get to E sharp, we are going to use our fingering for F natural. Okay, the next one, we already have played it, is going to be G major. So some of you might ask, where should I breathe in a scale? Okay, if you practice this, it's going to be in the same spot as all the other scales, and that is after the scale's note comes back. What does that mean? Look at G major. You see G as the first note, and you have already taken your big beautiful breath. Okay, you play the first octave until the G comes back, and then after that G, if you look at it, it's 2 beats. You have a little bit of a space to take another breath and play the scale down all the way to G. If you are doing a full range, every time the scale note, which in this case is G, comes back, you can squeeze in a breath after the note G. For example, you might not need that many breaths, but that is our rule for taking a breath. If you need a breath, take it after the note's name and the scale note's name. So for example, if it's G major, take it after G every single time. Okay, wonderful. Now, the next scale is going to be A flat major. We already, I think, talked about it, but just to make sure, A flat, what's this? We are going to use our B flat thumb, then go to C, then D flat, E flat, F, G, and A flat. Okay, now we can spend some time with chromatic scale finally. Okay, chromatic scale. If I want to give you some small theory lessons, chromatic scale is a scale that is made out of half step. So every note has a half step of a distance from the note that it's coming from and the note that it's going to. All right, so just like all the other scales, the strategies to perfect a chromatic scale is the same. You can make sure that you're practicing measure by measure. We are going to do all of these together in this video. Practicing measure by measure, note by note, adding a single note, all right? And you go ahead and point at the notes and say the names out loud, and then combine everything together, and then you have a chromatic scale. Okay, with this one, let's go measure by measure. The first measure is A sharp, B, C, C sharp. Okay, just one reminder, with chromatic scale, because we have so many B naturals, we are not using the B flat thumb. We move our finger here. First measure. Go. A sharp, B, C, C sharp. You can pause the video and play it a few times. The next measure is going to be D, D sharp, E, F. Go. Very good. Go ahead and pause the video if you need, so you can practice it. The next measure is going to be F sharp, G, G sharp, A. Remember the rule that we had, that we needed to repeat every measure 5 times, so we make sure that we have it. Make sure that you are doing those exercises, so you are making sure you know every note's fingering. Okay, the next measure, as you can see, this is measure 4 in chromatic scale. It's coming downwards. All right, so that's when we have all those flats. The highest note in this one is B flat, point at it. And coming to an A flat, point at it. Sorry, it's coming to an A natural. Then that goes to an A flat. Then that goes to a G. So B flat, A flat, G. Or if you have learned to do triplet vibratos, and because we are just learning this, make sure that you are tonguing every single note. Later, we need to be slurring down. Okay. The measure after this measure is going to have the notes G flat, F, E natural, and E flat. Go ahead and look at that measure. This is measure 5 in our chromatic scale. G flat, F, E, and E flat. And play it along with me. Wonderful. Okay. Again, G flat, F, E flat, E flat. Okay, wonderful. Now, the last measure before the last note in the chromatic scale is going to be the notes D, D flat, C, B natural, right? Okay, just want to remind you again, in chromatic scale, we are not using our B flat thumb, and we only use 1 and 1 or the slide B flat, okay? You shouldn't be sliding back and forth with your thumb. That's not a good idea, because later when you want to go faster, you are not going to be able to. So it will be hard to undo the habit later on. Okay, this is the measure before the last. D, D flat, C, B natural. Go ahead and say that out loud with pointing to the notes. D, D flat, C, B natural. And then the last note is B flat, which we do with 1 and 1, or depending on your preference, slide notes. Alright, this is going to be how a completed chromatic scale sounds like. You can play along with me if you already know this. 2, ready? With chromatic scale, if you need to take a breath after every 2 measures or 3 measures, you are allowed to, because it's not working like the major scales. But it would be a good idea to keep practicing this to the point that you can do it either with 1 breath or no breath. Or alright, we are done with our one octave major scales. I will be making another video for honors band students and symphonic band students about full range major scales. But even if you're in honors band, this video might be helpful to remind you some of the things that we sometimes forget. Alright, so I'll be making another practice video for full range majors. Alright, stay safe. Hope you have a good day.